My next guest is the award-winning author of 2 books about the history of Notre Dame football. His most recent book, titled Coach for a Nation, The Life and Times of Knute Rockne, is the first comprehensive biography of the legendary Notre Dame coach. He also created and maintains the website ndfootballhistory.com, dedicated to the heritage of Notre Dame football. Joining me right now is Notre Dame parent and sports historian Jim Lefebvre. Jim, welcome to the program. How are you?
Great to be with you, Rocky.
So we were talking a little bit off air. Describe the amount of research that went into this kind of topic here.
Well, it literally took years because the mission was to tell Coach Rockne's life in a depth and detail that had never been done before. And so that involved things like immigration from Norway and what the Chicago World's Fair was like in 1893 and University of Chicago football, all these things that influenced them. And so it took us far and wide, and a lot of time spent right here in the Notre Dame archives, but several years of research.
Jim, hold that book up for us here and
Absolutely.
Describe during the course of some of your research, maybe a story that a lot of people wouldn't know about Knute Rockne.
Well, what I find when I go about the country speaking is that a lot of people don't know that football was not his primary sport growing up. As a youngster in Chicago, he played a little, but he was mostly enamored with track and field. And he ends up being a very accomplished track and field athlete. He was a hurdler, a half miler, a shot putter, a pole vaulter. And that was what ultimately got him to Notre Dame, as 2 of his track teammates in Chicago convinced him to go give it a try to run track and field at Notre Dame. But I mean, he was training in Chicago next to Olympians with the Chicago Athletic Club. So that was just a huge part of his life.
All right, now, Knute Rockne died, 80 years ago, right? Describe for us, Jim, why is the story of Knute Rockne pertinent to now, 2017 and beyond?
Well, so many things that we take for granted in football, both Notre Dame and nationally, he was at the forefront of. For instance, platoon football. We don't even give it a thought today. But back in the 20s, most coaches took their 11 largest guys, which is another thing. He went for quick precision timing rather than size.
He would fit right in with his whole spread offense.
Well, he'd love it. Yes, he would love it. But most coaches took their 11 biggest guys, and that's who you rode for the whole game. And substitution was extremely limited by rule. Rockne foresaw platoon football and developed an entire second unit. They were called the shock troops, and they would start the games. So if you want to stump somebody with a trivia question, ask them, how many games did the Four Horsemen start in 1924? The answer is 0. The shock troops would start the game, take the shock out of the opponents for maybe a half a quarter or most of a quarter, usually play them pretty even, while his 11 best are on the sideline watching, taking in the strategy of
So here come the fresh guys.
Here come the fresh
players.
guys. It was masterful psychologically, as well as developing, coaching deeper and deeper into his roster.
That's very cool. Quickly, last question. Now, I know he was also integral in the whole camp system. Right now, all these coaches do these camps all over the country, football camps. He was one of the starters of that, right?
We can really say that Rockne invented the modern coaching clinic. Yep. He would spend all of his summers on the road at college campuses across the nation, conducting what they called coaching schools. They'd be 1 week long, sometimes 2 weeks long, so very, very extensive. I was able to acquire copies of his notes that he used in those camps, and tremendous attention to detail. But what translates to today from that is how he handled people, how he understood the psyche of individual players and could get the best out of them. And then at the same level, coaching other coaches. So you imagine high school coaches, prep school coaches, small college coaches coming to these camps and being around Rockne for days at a time. Not just in the classroom, but I think in the dining room and in the lobbies and whatnot. I think that's where he did some of his best work. And we've been able to prove that with some of the correspondence from these guys spread all over the country, would be writing back to him from time to time, quite often actually, with a question. And so he had a tremendous impact on how the game was coached across the country.
Very cool, Jim. Thanks so much for being with us on Notre Dame Day. I got to say, you've probably forgotten more about Notre Dame football than most fans have known in an entire lifetime.